first, that they're these ancient towers that very few engineers have ever seen, let alone know about or know how to build. And secondly, there were no blueprints of the towers themselves. Their personal blueprints had been lost. They scoured the television or the radio station for them and couldn't find them. So the Klein Tower said they had an engineer who was willing to come and see the towers in the morning, or soon after they had been blown over. And I said, that sounds, I'm not an architect or an engineer, and you all are in an architect firm, and blueprints are kind of critical, right? So, so I said to Ted, that seems miraculous. Wasn't it? And he said, yes, it really was. It was a remarkable feat. And he said, but that's not as. And I said, how did he do it? And he said, well, that's really not my story to tell. But I can give you the name of the engineer who did this incredible feat. His name is Tony Fonseca, and I don't have his phone number anymore because this was 20 years ago. This was 1989, and but I know he worked for Klein Tower, and I know his name. So I went and finished the tour, which I'm completely smitten now. I just love these towers, and I've learned more about towers than I thought I would ever want to know. And actually, they're fascinating. I promise you, if you read the book, you will never, ever see a radio tower and ignore it again. You will always look at, oh, what's the design? Yeah, I know about that kind. So I wrote the article for my brother. And, well, first of all, I did contact this Tony Fonseca. And he was so gracious. He would be more than happy to tell me how he did the rebuild. But he was so busy, I was so busy, and we just never connected. And so I decided I have enough information. I wrote the article without the specifics about the tower rebuild, sent it to my brother, who promptly lost it. I lost it. I think I had a computer crash. A few months later, I'm thinking, John never published that article. That's how he roped me into this, and he never even published that article for me. And that was when we discovered we all had lost the article. 6 years go by, and in the interim, I wrote a bunch of books, become a published author. And I'm rifling through my filing cabinet looking for something else and see the file from the tower tour. And I open it up, the article's gone. The article wasn't in there, but all my little 7-year-old's ladybug notes with her cute little, things asking me questions were in there, which was so nostalgic because she's now a teenager, and any of you with teenagers, it's not the same as with a 7-year-old. And so I'm remembering that and feeling, and loving it and reading over her notes, and a little piece of paper trickles to the floor, and on it was the name Tony Fonseca. And I thought, I dropped the ball 6 years ago, and I don't know how that tower engineer did that remarkable feat, and I want to know. And so I had to do a bunch of investigative work. I called the number that was on that slip of paper, and he was no longer there, and the secretary did not sound like she wanted to let me know where he was. So I had to do a whole bunch of research, and I tracked him down. He was now the co-owner of his own tower engineering firm called Tourist Incorporated. Tourist, by the way, is Greek for tower, and don't love that name. I just love that name. And I reintroduced myself. He remembered me and said, I want to write a book. I kind of decided at that moment, I want to write a book, and I want to write a book about the tower rebuild, and would you agree to that? And he agreed. Well, so for the next 2 years, I met Tony several times. I interviewed him every few days for about 2 years. I would talk with him. He was always dashing off someplace or another, and sometimes, I'd snatch just 5 or 10 minutes to talk with him, but I went to visit a tower site and while he was climbing and building so that I could learn about the whole process. And in the interim of doing all that and learning about the specifics of the tower rebuild, I found out that not only was he a remarkable engineer, but he was a remarkable human being with a really compelling story. And as an author, here was the best part. The story of the tower being toppled by storms and then being nearly miraculously rebuilt really paralleled Tony's story and Tony's life. He had had a really rough part in the middle of his life. and it would have toppled many lesser men. But he really, he rebuilt. He was at a real low point in his life, career-wise, family-wise, marriage-wise, and just kind of felt the world crumbling around him. And he rebuilt just such an admirable life, and which I'm going to have him tell you about. But for me, that was lesson number 3 of the Towers, and that was that when you feel like all is lost and it's impossible and you can't possibly rise from this kind of destruction, that you can through faith and family and hope and love and optimism. One of Tony's greatest qualities, which everyone who knows him would agree with, is he is the perennial optimist. And in fact, to prove that, for the cover of the book, my cover designer said, I need a serious picture of Tony, where he's not smiling. I think it'll give the romantic quality. So I told Tony, I don't have any serious pictures of Tony. With Tony not smiling, can you take some? And he actually did have a photographer take some. And I hear his wife said, Tony, it doesn't look like you. And that's what I said, it doesn't look like him, because this is it. Tony smiling is what you always see. So with that, I hope now you know how I met Tony. A lot of you asked me, how did you get involved? Okay, my brother got me involved. And then how did I meet Tony? And why on earth is an artist, a complete non-scientific, non-technological person, writing and loving radio towers? Well, now you know. And now I would like you to meet the tower builder himself, and he can tell you the rest of the story.